Павлов. Дякую всім, хто дивиться нас онлайн. Ми будемо продовжувати робочий день в Українському кризовому медіа-центрі. І тема наступної дискусії – це подолання політичної корупції.
The topic of this briefing is chances of defeat political corruption in Ukraine. And here we have the Deputy Head of Presidential Administration, Oleksandr Danyliuk, Danyliuk, and Serhiy Leschenko MP, Gunelba Viktor lawyer and at IFES, and Oleksiy Khmara, Head of Transparency International, expert of RPR, and here with us, we will be joined by Mr. Kovryzhenko, and the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
I'm going to say a few words, generally speaking, and then from the point of view of the head of our delegation, GRECO. Generally speaking, I believe that adoption of this law, this is a revolutionary step, and it actually is something which is important to all of our citizens. I believe this is a basic law because we can fight corruption in the whole front line, but we have to start something. Somebody said that it starts from the top and others from the bottom, but how the people got into politics, generally speaking. This is important to understand today because political parties mean the influence in the parliament, and the parliament in the parliamentary republic actually carries out a lot of functions. One of those functions is the formation of the cabinet of ministers. Speaking about the local councils, for example, then again, in the context of decentralization, there are a lot of authorities which are delegated to the local authorities, which is very important for the parliament, for the president, and at the local level, everything is important. That is why regulation and fighting corruption from the very beginning is very important indeed. And what I meant before when I mentioned that this draft law was considered during the committee, that was important to me as a citizen of this country. I mean, this is the step towards the situation when we are going to depart from the party of leaders to the party of the ideology. I don't like this term ideology. Many people do not like this term, but this is a very correct thing. Now, those parties who have bigger budget, they can say more lies, so to say. Now, those who have a bigger budget, they have better opportunity to convey their position or their message. And when you are limited in finance-wise, you actually can't do much. And we are going to have a different quality of the politicians. We are going to have kind of liberal economy, which I'm in favor of. Serhiy, you support this as well, yeah, in the bottom of my heart. I myself, not just in the bottom of my heart. This must become in the heart of the policy pursued by the leadership of our country. I believe that this takes place already. Many people in the top echelon of powers actually support this approach. Many of those actually believe that the country must carry out some other functions. But anyway, this is the position of a citizen. Now we're speaking about the position of our head of the GRECO delegation. Last week I was happy to realize that actually we got the positive conclusion, the third one this year. There were some, we started to work in the 1990s, or at the beginning of the 2000s, but they could not actually finish something. This year we had 3 of those, and last one took place last week, and 90% of what was going on was associated with funding of the parties. And GRECO actually gave a very good assessment evaluation of our efforts, and this is really important. We still have to correct something, but this can be done next year to introduce one or two changes. But institutionally, we achieved the level of other countries as well. And accordingly, we actually expect something on the part of the politicians. Mr. Anton, you're going to be the next one because you mentioned that you have to leave us soon. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity given to me to speak here. Actually, formally, this topic is actual adoption of the respective law and combating corruption. We are talking about financing political parties. However, unlike the first speaker, I allow myself to have a more broader look at this topic because whatever is the Minister of Justice is one of the headliners in formation of our public policy in the sphere of combating corruption, and indeed the GRECO platform is one of the major ones in order to implement the reform. If we are talking about combating corruption, and in addition to that platform aside, there is another one, for example, dialogue with the European Commission regarding the simplification of facilitation of the visa regime. There are less specialized platforms which are related to this or another extent with combating corruption, but we actually stick to the approach that the progress in combating corruption is not just actually the literal implementation of certain recommendations, but it means a much broader approach. We can actually remember the history of adoption that or development of that law. There was the Minister of Justice version or the version of the MPs, and the consensus between different authors of different approaches toward, let's say, ensuring the transparency of the activities of different political parties means that in different authorities, we were talking about different participants in the process of combating corruption. They have some different approaches to reach some specific results. The figures demonstrate that today only 10 recommendations have been completely implemented, partially 6 more. And this is quite a considerable progress, in my opinion, as Mr. John Biden mentioned in his address to the Ukrainian parliament. A lot of countries are keeping an eye on what's going on in Ukraine, so we cannot slow down our progress. But I would like to emphasize once again that the government, generally speaking, believe that the combating corruption is not just implementation of specific recommendation. It means a more broad approach. That's why corruption fighting would be more efficient if every entity, every subject which has some authority will do everything possible in order to combat corruption. In fact, and as far as I know, there is a positive step forward. I mean that in the project of the public budget, they actually made some provisions for implementation of this specific draft law. And as they say, the reform is based on the legislative provision, and then the plus implementation, etc. If we are talking about this law, we can say that two components of the reform have been fulfilled. Now we have to take care of implementation, and in this sense, we have we actually we took the course to do that properly. But coming back, that today is International Day of Combating Corruption. I believe that each recommendation actually was formed in certain historical period. And time flies, and the situation changes in Ukraine very fastly. and we have to consider each situation in the context of transformation in society and actually the development of the events or the and that's why each ministry, each player, if you're talking about social relationship, they have to do everything to contribute to the development of the situation. And we try to introduce online services or distanciation to a maximum extent of person from the process where everything is done just mechanically. There was an approval of part of the GRECO, judging by the last round of our negotiation. We also have the approval on the part of the European Commission experts within the framework of dialogue regarding liberalization of the visa regime. That's why the pace which we already have has to be maintained in the near future in order to implement all the recommendations, and the most important, to provide to the situation, to ensure the situation when combating the could be done according to the above mentioned lines. With your permission, I would like to say a few more things. I believe I would like to draw attention to the fact that yes, actually, the law has been adopted, and in order for everything to work, we have another change to ensure. I'm talking about the establishment of the corruption prevention agencies. You know, many functions and the authorities and the powers and regulating this sphere, at least monitoring this process. We are talking about the authority which could be given to this commission, and this is one of the items or reasons why we did not obtain the full positive evaluation on the part of the GRECO. They said, yes, you regulated a lot, but in practice, everything depends on the agency to be established and how efficiently they're going to fulfill their functions. I would like to say that today, the process of electing 5 members of this agency is coming to close. Maybe you know, maybe not, that 2 of those members tentatively have been preliminarily elected. They have not been nominated, but the 2 persons have already been through this election. And for this agency to start to start working, we need 3 members to soon we are going to elect all 5 members. Will make it possible to launch the work of this agency in the near future. I'm talking about this Friday, and I believe that I hope that this Friday we'll get the positive signal. We will be able to launch the agency, which we expect a lot. Friends, Alexander is going to leave us now, but this law requires a lot of appreciation on the part of those who are going to to stay here. Thank you very much for your participation. This law, actually, this is the case study how they should adopt the laws in the Ukrainian Parliament. It was rather easily adopted as compared to some other laws like different amendments. You know how many times they postponed that and delayed that, but our law was adopted in the first reading, at the first attempt, in the second during the second reading. Denis is not here, but Mr. Kovryzhenko was the author of this draft law, and we have to thank him, and also to the Ministry of Justice, which was involved in that, and owing to the fact that there was a deputy draft law, maybe that's why it was easily adopted by the Parliament. Alexander was the major lobbyist, and then also anti-corruption institutions who actually Sorry, we have the simultaneous translation and the interpretation, and that's why. Actually, I wanted to give a chance, Alexander, leave as soon as possible, so I was speaking too fast, maybe. But we are talking about all the important laws, speaking special laws related to your integration. You have to be adopted the same way. This should be mean the formula of success. Thank you, Alexander, for your participation. We'll be looking forward to your next reforming initiative. As for the law, it will become valid in the very near future, and very important to us what has been provided in this law to be actually implemented. We are talking about the funds of the parties and trying to be involved more and more in this process. It's very important to see that the system of the expenditures be transparent to maximum extent, like it is in the site of the British Electoral Election Committee, which is responsible this in that country. So we could monitor the number of the contributions, or because now we are going to start the process of implementation. There are examples in Europe when the law is formally adopted, but the disclosure information is not really successful. For example, scanning of the gifts, the reports about the gifts, which cannot be acceptable to anybody, especially including this agency, which is going to try to find some errors or mistakes. So Ukraine has to introduce the best possible practices, how to disclose the taxes and the gifts. So we have to watch attentively what is going to be done in order for this law to be really operational and usable. Usability, I'm talking about, so they could disclose the information in the online mode, etc. As regards funding, it's very important that this is included in the budget for the next week. And we don't know what kind of version would be submitted. We are going to, but the fact remains a fact. Since July 1 next year, the parties has to be given the funds, about 320 million hryvnia, which have to be paid to those parties which are represented in this parliament. And starting from the next elections, those which will overcome the 3% barrier. And so as soon, we have to do that as soon as possible. And I agree with Mr. Alexander, this is very important, so I would like to ask those colleagues which are involved in this process to say what is the status of this. Thank you, Serhiy. Thank you, my colleagues. I represent here Transparency International Ukraine. It's very important and responsible on my part to talk about that with you today, which is the International Anti-Corruption Day, when we report to the society what has been done in order to reduce the level of corruption in Ukraine. We have here the Deputy Minister of Justice, the body which actually coordinates the whole legislative modular block associated with our visa liberalization, with our striving towards the European community, our right to live a decent life in the European manner, and Anton actually coordinates directly this. We have also the deputy chairman who is responsible for the combating corruption in Ukraine, and we had the deputy head of the presidential administration responsible so that the ideas of the president be heard in the government and be regulated in the parliament. And all those gentlemen say that next year in Ukraine we are going to have revolution. I agree with them. We are going to have this revolution in Ukraine, but I must say that the revolution will take place not in the Maidan. This is going to be the first Ukrainian technocratic revolution, which will actually oust the oligarch from the politics. How is it going to happen? According to the law, which we take special pride in, which is highly appreciated by all European institutions, starting next year, Ukrainian parties are going to be financed from the budget if they meet some of the technical, very complex criteria. Very briefly, yeah, just to remind you, if they disclose the information about their own donors, those who donate money to them, if they pass through the annual independent audit of the financial activities, in other words, they can hire the company which will prove that they do not steal the money in those parties. If they publish the reports about their property, about their finances, financial statements, in other words, if they publish their property declaration or financial statement, actually, and if they are not against being controlled by the special authorized institutions, those parties will be eligible for the public funds, the governmental government allocated funds, and this has we have a special anti-corruption body which has been created now to prevent, which is the agents to prevent the corruption. So far, we do not have its members under the law. There must be maximum 5, minimum 3. As far as I understand, this Friday we are going to have those, and we are looking forward to that. But then there are some technological things which can lead to this technological revolution. 5 parameters which we have to remember. Methodology of assessment of the activities of the party is number 1, who is considered to be, the whether the party of the prime minister is better than the presidential party based on different criteria. This methodology or those techniques must be outlined now. This has to be created by those members of the anti-corruption committee which have to be elected. So we do not have any other choice to sit down and prepare those methodologies so that this agency can use those methods starting from the springtime next year to whom to channel the money. Then the register, which was mentioned by Serhiy. The worst case, if those scanned in PDF pictures will be on the website and they will be called as register. This is not going to help in any way to us. We have to switch over to the open data, which can be compatible with some other programs, which is demanded by the new law. Thanks for that. If we are able to do that, any one of us can easily see the sponsors of this or another party. I don't think there are any naive persons in this audience. We understand that all the oligarchs will try to, through their proxies or some fake persons, to do that, and our technical services will help us in doing that. Third thing, there must be experts who understand what does this or that party means. Their financials, their reporting. We do not have a lot of such experts now. Colleagues, I believe that today, today we can declare or announce contents for those experts who will be ready to come here and monitor and control the finances. We really badly lack you in the public service. So please come join us and let's control everything together. There is a risk that the oligarchs will send their own people, then there will be no control. We need the people, okay, different people. The number 4, we must together in the nearest future to make sure that there are two lines of the expenditures in the public budgets for the agency for it to normally work, and to finance the parties which meet the above mentioned criteria. If they do not include the money for the parties, then they will introduce some changes to the budget, and those changes are approved as a rule twice a year. They can actually suspend the law in this specific area for some indefinite time. And the last remark, the 5th criteria which we have to meet, technological to provide. We need not to leave the functionaries of the party one-to-one with the parties and the authorities. The reason is they all try to outline everything in such a way that formally the parties will meet those criteria, but they continue to get the money from their traditional sponsors. Of course, the efforts of those people who are present here today are not enough. Let's voice out loud the names of those people who do that and help to finance those parties who the people trust. I believe this is a good beginning to meet this kind of requirement. Thank you.
And now I give the floor to Ms. Vankina. I am an expert of the analysis department, and our center is one of the centers that advocated the law on public financing of political parties. And we spoke with the public, and people don't understand why they, from their pockets, should provide money to the parties. And this is one more point about what we should speak. And we should inform the public why this law is important, why it incorporates good anti-corruption principles. And we, as a public, we didn't celebrate the victory when this law was adopted. Of course, throughout the year, our center and our partners are going to monitor the direct implementation of this law. And the first step we made, two representatives of our center, Rostov and Taran, they are members of Electoral Commission that will elect the members of and we are going to control this process from the start. And all the speakers told us about the importance of this law. And this law is important because it was in the list of visa-free laws. And to eradicate corruption, we should eradicate corruption at the grassroots level, but at the top level too. And also this day of fighting corruption, you know that Ukraine went up the list of those countries that fight corruption, and it was the result of adopting the law that was advocated by our center, RPR, and supported by our other speakers. And I think that you understand that this step is really important, and we, from both sides, we fight corruption, both from the side of the state budget, that every kopeck will be transparent, and these transactions will be published on the sites, and there's a date for this. And also we eradicate corruption in political parties. And we believe that in a year we will go up this rating 5 steps ahead. So thank you very much. And now we go to questions and answer series. Thank you. And why I spoke about speed of speech. I'm a moderator and I want to work here, so please. Okay, do you have some questions to our speakers? Movement Chestno, honest. You mentioned here that all the reports should be available online. And do you have a date when will it happen? For example, in what year, what quarter of the year? This is the responsibility of the agency that should be moderating these issues. But I believe that the end of the first quarter it will be maybe it will be the 31st of March. Maybe these report they will be in paper version, printed materials. But maybe there will be some changes, so maybe it will be in 2016. There will be some problems, of course, but we should program system in the right way, and then there should be then it should be printed, and then a very important thing, we should create a body of advisors and to provide information what they should do, because they have many functions. And April next year, there will be a special website, and all tax declarations will be submitted through the site, and also the register of those who are involved in corruption, and then those that there will be a regulation of conflicts, and I don't know how many persons, so 3, 5 persons, when they are going to eat or sleep. And Chesna movement and other professional and expert communities, they should help, and it's in our hands. We should help them. Thank you, Oleksiy. And the next question.
112 України.
112 Ukraine, Bakumenko. Today you're going to establish some kind of control agencies or bodies. But the question is more to the people. What the ordinary Ukrainians have to do in order to be involved in combating corruption? What kind of steps they should take? Well, with your permission, I'll start to answer this question because I represent here a public organization, ordinary people who fight corruption. Actually, they ask the same question the whole day today. We have to do 5 things. First of all, to understand what corruption means, generally speaking. It's enough to read 2 very short brochures, 3 pages each, about that. Second step, if you know about some corruptive fact or potential corruptive, you have to send an information request. If you don't know how to do that, then go to the portal Access to Truth. And everything is described there. You have to fill in the form. Everything is very simple. Step number 3, if you see that there's potential some act of corruption, but you don't know exactly details about that, so give this information to those people who know what to do with that. There are a lot of different organizations. You don't have to know personal circulation can start fighting corruption locally. There are a lot of circulation because in Ukraine, which actually really gratifies our hearts. If you number 4, if you understand yourself and know how to do, you would like to join this fight combating corruption, you can become the expert in that. Maybe this will take some time. Step number 5, if you already know how to professionally do that, and would like to join some initiative organization, or to disseminate this knowledge among the beginners, you have to do that, disseminate your knowledge or share your knowledge. The problem in Ukraine, we have a lot of fighters who commit corruption, but they do not know how to do that. They do lack cooperation. I believe that you, as representatives of mass media, will help us to do that. I absolutely agree that the citizens have a lot of tools to be involved in combating corruptions. In addition to what has been said, there are also petitions which can be initiated. Also, there is an access to the public councils, so please send that information to the public councils or the local governance agencies. Attend the sessions of the local councils, and very often there is something which we cannot hear here in Kyiv. You can record video or audio records in order to share, to disseminate the information. We can actually hold the whole conference dedicated to the different means and tools to be used in combating corruption. Thank you. Next question. Good afternoon. I have the following question. What you're talking about, it's, really looks very nice or sounds very nice. And I have the impression that everybody, join different institutions, there will be nobody to to grow the crops in the spring. Um, so we have so many institutions, and maybe somebody believes that we do not have enough of those. We have to establish another one, and we have to. Our citizens have to spend some money, additional money for somebody to find something, But we have all those who remain the power. They themselves adopt the laws. They know all those slots which they're going to use as an escape, Do you really believe that something is going to change? Or we just, another time we are going to talk, and you'll tell us very nice things, but then another 20 or dozens of different other nice things, and nothing will change. I really like your activity, but I don't like your skepticism, because much depends on you how actively you're going to monitor the activities of the government, of the parties, etc. In those countries where they have the genius of prosecutors and real powerful investigative bodies, anyway, the public organizations are the vanguard, and they actually provide the impetus for the investigation, etc., etc. As for for a lot of bodies control, we have only one anti-corruption bureau, and we are not talking about the law enforcement bodies, but this is going to be part of the central executive power. And as for the investigation of so-called corruption crimes of category 1 and 2, this is going to be the competence of the another agency which is going to be established. So we are talking about the distribution of the competences between the existing ones, and we are not talking about some extra expenditures, but redistribution of the expenditures. And if this is concentrated within the prosecutor's office, this doesn't have any effect. They come through the process of filtration, come back again. This is not efficient. It better create something new, like we had a case with the police. The same pertains to the new anti-corruption bureau, than to reform the special directorate of the chief investigative department operating out of the prosecutor's office. This is, kind of political system. This is a very good question, but without creating something new, we cannot win a victory. I can continue what Serhiy said. The Indians had the very good wisdom. The horse is dead, so leave it. So we have to actually to throw away something dead and to give a chance to some other horses to do something. As you said, we have 2.5 horses today. One is doing with the prosecution of the top corruptionists, and the anti-corruption bureau at last started to work, and half of that bureau, the anti-corruption the prosecutor's office, and we believe that it's going to be independent body within the general prosecutor's office, and it's going to report to the general prosecutor. This is another. This is the corruption prevention body, which is being created now, which will have a lot of functions, from the Ministry of Justice, the National Agency on the Public Services, and other institutions. They are going to redistribute the existing money, and we need some other registers, electronic registers, to make it happen. But those registers are going to be to exist not for the Ukrainians' money, but the UN institutions. Some part of that was financed by European countries, etc., etc. So the Ukrainian money will be spent for the black PR against the reformers who are trying to implement this reform. If we are talking about how efficient it's going to be, either to create new institutions or redistribute the authorities, we have to assess that by very other indicators. If you wish new parties to come, which having 2% would like to effect new policy, and not the oligarchs, you can see that the officials very attentively, pay attention a lot for their declaration because they know that they are being threatened, if anything, by several years of imprisonment, 5 years and more. Then you can say, and we are going to say that we have some progress. We do not have the rosy spectacles. What we do as the transparency, we prepare the weapons. We already invited submachine guns. Now we need the cartridges. Part of those will be charged with some additional substances to be the armor penetrating, and we have to teach the Ukrainians how to shoot. Maybe there will be some other officials, but without their own control. So everything is in our hands. We do not have any delusions about some kind of prime minister, president, whoever, whatever name you are talking about. But we believe in the efforts of those people who represent here. We can do that, but we have to do something about that.
I have a question. You know that recently here in Kiev, the experts held a meeting about information security and openness, and they sponsor a lot of meetings, and they share the information. And we all know what our public service and government are afraid of. And they say that their profits are not available. Information on their profits is not available to the public. But this contradicts with the law on information. And another question. This pink helmet. So if we have a lot of institutions, but the law on openness of information doesn't work properly. I don't remember the name of this law, but I know that every institution should provide information to the citizen or organization within 30 days. So you say that one institution will send the person to the next institution, and this is a vicious circle. So they say, oh, okay, so the state is separate from the people, and we are tired of this. And I will tell you, as a lawyer, I was present at that meeting, and our Center of Political Studies and Analysis, we work with the Council of Europe, and we monitor how this law on public information works. And 30 days it's in previous law. The law on the access to public information, it provides 5 days for the answer, and 4 years passed, and this law is working not 100% and not even 50% in some instances. But institutions, and together with the ombudsman, who controls the implementation of this law, they monitor continuously how this law is implemented. And during the last months, I sent 66 complaints about those officials who violated this law. So there are administrative fines, and this public officer or official, he will do it better next time. And for example, if one institution will send the complaint to the next, so we have a law that is in the list of 10 best laws in this area. And if someone knows who knows the information, they should redirect this claim to another institution. And we also work with such violations. All this really works, so we should protect our rights. If they rejected the claim, just write the complaint to the ombudsman, and this works. The ombudsman really works in this direction very effectively, more effectively than the prosecutor's office has worked.
Are there any more questions? Well, it looks like Serhiy has to return to the parliament. Their committee has a meeting. They try to fight corruption, and it's very difficult for them to work. Let's give him a chance to leave us now, okay? Well, anyway, we do not have any more questions. Thank you for coming, and see you again at the UCMC. Once again, thank you. Esteemed colleagues, this is the end of our working day. The schedule for the briefings, briefings for tomorrow will be